DRO's dispute resolution organization in Stefbot's Fantasyland are similar to district civil judges in our current court system. If an appeal decision was needed, would take an appeal to another DRO of no greater authority. So this would be like an appeal to a district civil judgment going in front of another district civil court, not a higher authority or not a federal court. Arbitration occurs between two parties entering into an agreement where a dispute arises, but it does not exist between parties who have no prior mutual agreement. That is what the current court system is for. So if justice is to be served, there must be laws of the land, or in Stefbot's case, law of the land, singular. And what is a grand singular rule which all must obey or have consequences? Well, if it isn't justified by histories of laws or precedents and contexts, and it must be singular, it must be universal, so it applies to everyone. A singular interpretation or means of interpretation for all variable cases, not unlike living under a single tyrant or a monotheistic theocracy, as only one authority rules or dictates all. UPBs are the framework from which all case or case scenarios of violation of a person or property are analyzed by the DROs, and if in violation, or if a violation occurs, then some retribution or ostracism occurs, a stripping of rights or access. The grounds of UPB are based on texts defining non-aggression principles. Aggression principles are premised upon the idea that one owns their own body and property, which is different than possessing it. And this is also not unlike our current legal definitions. DROs apply a single rule over us in Stefbot's Fantasyland. In our current system, taxes function as a singular rule over us. And in both cases, this is a singularity of reigning authority. In linguistics, there is the difference and similarity between following a rule and obeying a rule. Stefbot's entire bitching and moaning is based on his obeying the rule, pay your taxes, and confusing it for following the rule, pay one's taxes, which is not unlike the behavior of the DROs in his book Practical Anarchy. That is to say, if one does not follow or obey the rule of UPB, then retribution or societal ostracism occurs. A force is applied, or it's applied to the contextual elements about an individual. Stefan creates a system of connected ideas which imply that taxation equals force, and force is a threat, and that all threats are threats of death. So you'll see if you read Practical Anarchy that the accused violator must go to a trial, like getting a subpoena in our law system, or they're going to be cut off from society. So in our current society, the law recognizes a person who doesn't come to court as being on the lam. And in Stefbot's Fantasyland, the DROs recognize the person not showing up to court is simply being cut off from society altogether. Being cast out of society might be like being naked in the woods during a cold winter and having no place to turn. So a vacuum of needed resources. You would be in a vacuum without needed resources. So in our current system, death happens to the body. In Stefbot's system, a body is left in a vacuum to die. So either case, death or the threat of death occurs. Stefan is afraid to stop following the rules and actually to go and enjoy an excursion with the law. He actually believes incarceration is a rape room without exception. So he's falling prey to his own propaganda. He's ill-experienced with breaking the law, and I think you'd be surprised that incarceration does not, by necessity, lead to rape nor death. Just a more severe form of slavery for a particular period of time. In Fantasyland, a wounded animal would be able to wander out into the wilderness and die. If they were wounded, they didn't feel the universally preferable behavior, the authority that is reigned above them that defines that was correct, they could become ostracized, they could wander out into the wilderness and die with or without dignity, with or without their identity. Where in our system, a wounded animal is taken indoors and it's put to death, it's put down. In both cases, death is impending. I mean, we're all going to die. If I were to follow Stefbot's system, then I would simply add a pretext to taxation equals force. That would be that following an authority, any authority, is taxing. Whether it's yours, Stefan, or ours. And obeying a rule is taxation. To follow or obey, I'm taxed. My sovereignty and my identity have forces upon it just by being a language-speaking individual. You see, in our system, you're obeying a rule with a threat. In Stefbot's Fantasyland, you're following a rule which is also a threat. In both cases, they're guised as moral. In summation, no system can exist without authority, and whether one follows a rule or obeys a rule, the possibility of not following a rule or violating a rule also exists. So it is that being under any authority is a friction on our beings. This friction is taxing. To speak reasonably, one follows the rules of ration and obeys the rules of logic. One is forced to do so, or one is ostracized or discarded from a reasonable discussion. So hence we're all slaves to previous concurrent authors of language as systems of language manifest into dictations upon our physical beings and physical surroundings. So no matter how Stefan wants to skin the cat and stitch it back together, the new body politic is no more freeing than the last. And at best, the new body politic is post-op, and at worst, it's post-mortem. This was the case of seeing, back in the day, as seeing bloodletting as blood-freeing, or blood freedom. Stefan has not led us to a domain of freedom at all, but to a black hole of his own rhetoric. And if he has led us anywhere, it's through a tunnel of hermeneutic frames into the middle of a used car lot, where he stands firstly as an actor who is playing the part of a philosopher, and secondarily as a salesman of his own rhetoric, who now cares more about the money he's receiving from Google as a partner and not so much about the content of his product. So if tax equals force, then authority equals tax. Whether it is the state's authority as it stands now or the state of affairs found within Stefan's texts. Lastly, I'll say that Stefan likes to use the Matrix analogy, but dismisses that Neo could have died within the Matrix as an unknowing slave, or outside the Matrix, as he did, as a zombie sacrificing himself like a Jewish zombie for the children afforded to live their lives in the Zion portrayed in that movie. Stefan is aware of the medium of his grammar, but he's not wary of his adherences to the grammar, and is hence but an artist clowning an ideal of plutocracy